what do I put inside there? I try to weave my balance. Yes, I try to weave my balance, aka my thesis and my antithesis, into R1 and R2. So R1 thesis, R2 antithesis. Yes? Later, I will tell you there's a backup approach. When do we use the backup approach? The backup approach is used when the above approach fails. What do I mean by above approach fails? It fails when your E1 overlaps with R2. It happens. You all know E1 is for part B, right? Then you need E2 also. E1 rebuts R1. You all know that. You have R1, then you have E1. Who is not aware of the R1, E1, R2, E2 structure? Okay. Some institutional memory, right? Okay. So you see, it's used when above approach fails, in which case we weave the split dartboard into R1 and R2. If I just say it like that, it's not very clear. I need to demonstrate. Okay. Is it too fast? Okay, good. So, for the question number, Aiden, any idea? If I weave my balance into R1 and R2, what would it look like? My R1 here, if I try to put my balance, yes, it does more harm than good. And maybe you want to say, no, it doesn't. It does more good than harm. Correct? So let's say this is R1, this is R2. What is the purpose of E1? E1, we know it rebuts R1. And of course, for Ri, you still need to go further to write interim conclusion. But if I rebut R1, am I going to end up saying something that's the same as R2? You all know this feeling, right? Have you been there before? As you are writing, you realize, I don't know what to write for E1 because that is R2 already. We don't want to end up in this sticky situation in the A levels. Because if you decide to cancel out and to rewrite, it's going to be very messy. So always plan using this. And if this fails, this. Okay. So one of you asked, when does it not overlap? A lot of instances. Okay, later I'll show you many instances where you can just use the most preferred approach. Okay, good. Okay, so now if I don't like this approach because it overlaps, I'm going to use my second approach. Okay, second approach. Do you remember we split the dartboard? Like here, I think we were looking mostly at equity and negative externalities. Of course, you can bring in cost push inflation, you can bring in tax revenue when you have the time. But let's say we keep to the bare bones structure. We only focus on this two. Okay, so split dartboard from A was about equity versus loss of AE. You all still remember part A? Correct, huh? I didn't try to sneakily change anything. Okay, so when this is the case, any idea what would my